morning, good evening, everyone. This is Luda Kopkina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News, where we rate articles essential, important, or optional. You can find the articles at gaiinsights.com/articles. And please follow along and let us know what you think about what we say and our ratings. Today, I have John, Ankash, and Paul, our regular crew, and a special guest, Chris Brock, who appears periodically. Welcome, Chris.
So good to be here. Thank you. Look forward to talking about AI on the last day of the year.
I know, isn't that fun? Great. So let's start with the first article. Ankash, please.
Thanks, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from Sebastian Rashka, and he talks about the state of LLMs 2025, progress, problems, and predictions.
So this is the person who put it to himself to recreate an LLM from scratch, then used all kinds of techniques to experiment with them. So all of the things he writes comes from experiential learning and his experience. What did you think about this one, Chris?
I think this was a really interesting recap of the last year in AI. I think that it moved so rapidly this year, we sort of forget the importance of that DeepSeek moment that we had where compute sort of changed from the foundation models and to possibly open source and at a cost that would be substantially cheaper. That's highlighted in this. There's also some highlights on different training methods. They focus on just the changes from 2022 to now. So that's somewhat interesting to see, but not many people are training their own model. So though very interesting, it was very just like an education course on the differences in how to train an AI model. I think that they also talked about research and reasoning in the system, because that really happened this year, that AI went from just prompting to actually reasoning for a while. So I thought that was a very important concept that we saw this year. He mentions a little bit about two things that sort of come to mind, which is what happened this week, about inference. Inference is how sort of the AI processes and what type of speed it processes prompts and then can output the answer to you. So inference with Grok just being purchased this week by NVIDIA, inference is obviously very important. And it goes into this in this article about how GPUs may need a boost on the inference side, and we may see that in 2026. So on my end, I think it's a very educational, overlooking article over 2026. I think they left a lot of cool things out that they could have mentioned, like maybe Manus. Since they mentioned DeepSeek, it'd be cool to talk about like Manus as well, especially with their acquisition to Meta. Their data system that they created this year was very important and very unique. I really enjoyed it. So there are a few things lacking. I would say that this is an optional article for most business leaders, and if you're actually like learning about AI hands-on, I think it'd be important. So I'm going to say it's optional right now for the business leader.
Okay, so optional from Chris, but interesting insights and interesting educational piece. What did you think about this, Ankash?
That was important on this one, Luda. I think this is an article which the AI leader can send to their teams who are building all these tools, right? Those people, they need to understand what has been going on. Since they have been working on this, they would know some of it. But yeah, there's a lot of there which talks about what those people can expect in 2026. So I think important from that perspective.
Okay. John, what was your rating?
Yeah, it was a very similar place to Ankash. I was going to say optional for the ad leader, but important to essential for the developers. There's some really good stuff in here. He goes down, and he not only, Luda, you said he started out with insights from his own modeling and so forth, which is true. He also does a pretty good job of reviewing a lot of the research and the reports from development and explaining the math and the different models and alternatives. And this has some very nice pointers to things like the the comparisons of different model architectures and how to build your own LLM from scratch if you want to, and so forth. And I think that his notion of the algorithms that were really useful in 25, RPO and RLVM, real, reinforcement learning through verifiable reality, right? Those are important trends if you're doing, model development. But so I was optional for the AI leader, important for their developers.
I was actually thinking important for even AI leader, because this reviews techniques like GRPO. When you don't need, you can use the LLM as a judge, but it kind of does it on its own. It compiles the answer of the best answer and advances the LLM quality standard by itself. Sort of, it's a self-learning, self-advancement type of a loop that is explained very simply, and it's important for AI leaders to know. So I was on the important side. Paul, what did you think? You are on mute, I think.
Yeah, Luda, I'm not hearing you well. I don't know if that's on my internet side or yours. You were coming in and out. I had as important, Luda, for your thing. I think it's worth a skim. I don't think it changes anything, but I think an AI leader skimming this will at least feel comfortable that he or she knows the major tech trends. I don't think they change anything, but at least reinforce that.
Okay. Important it is. Let's proceed to the next one.
Hey, the next one comes from Coinbase, and it talks about building enterprise AI agent at Coinbase, engineering for trust, scale, and repeatability.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
John?
Yep. Yeah, Luda. I was going to give us an optional. I thought it was a kind of a relatively weak case study. The notion of they did they did a report, internal automations that helped them with different tasks to save them over 25 hours a week. And they completed end-to-end development of these supports much faster. And they talk about the notion of standardizing what these different agentic paths look like. So they say build a job description, engineer the graph, treat observability as a requirement, keep a human in the loop. I don't think there's a lot of new news here, and it's not that well written, so I was going to give it an optional.
Okay, Ankash.
For all the reasons that John mentioned, Luda, was important on this one. I agree with him. It's not well written, but all those pointers that John mentioned about having a proper job description, engineering the graph, and not going too much into the chart itself, human in the loop. So we have observed over this year that those are the things that make these AI agents well guarded from all the hallucinations and all the problems that can arise. So for that reason, I was important. So small article shares these learnings, can be written well, but still it shares some good stuff.
Okay. Chris, what did you think?
I put this as optional as well. I didn't really see how it was going to impact the greater user base right now. It was more of what they think's going to work now, and like how they're going to execute in their AI agentic world. Optional for me.
Yeah, I was kind of with Ankash because it just stresses a very important point, that you have to look at agent development as a software discipline. So you have to put a framework in place before you go do a lot of agents. And that's really, I think, critical. I agree with Ankash. But on the other hand, it's sort of, we've seen this before, that we've talked about it. Okay, Paul, last word.
Actually, it was important for Ankaj's thing about the job description for the agents. I think that's a really important mentality. I was with a senior architect yesterday who I showed him the learning lab where we had Nash walk through his 12 agents of build thing. He actually couldn't believe that, went and took Nash's code, and it really fundamentally changed his learning curve. And I think thinking about these agents, the job description, I think, is a really important lever to start thinking about how this is more than just a little subroutine that you want to code right. It's a whole capability, and thinking about the job description going into that capability is how we think about adding key developers and members to a team. And that, to me, that's very different than thinking about how to do just a mini subroutine. So ahead is important.
Okay. All right. I guess important it is. Let's proceed.
Yeah, moving on to the next one. This one comes from Spotify, and they talk about their background coding agents and context engineering in this one.
Yes, Ankash, what did you think about this one?
So Luda, I was important on this one. So what Spotify is doing is they developed coding agents for their background coding part of the tool. They were using some different agents where a lot of human involvement in terms of picking up files. There was a lot of context turn limits that they were going against, and those tools were not generalizable, so they were not doing well. They had to give very specific instructions to generate the code from those set of tools. Then they moved to Claude Code, and it helped them give higher level goal prompts and do sub agents and do task management as well. What they learned as part of that was one, on the prompting part of it, that you need to give very specific prompts, but they should not be too prescriptive, because then the agents, they just can't function. So basically, they tell us that the rubric is you need to state your assumptions, you need to give specific examples, you need to define the end state as well, and you need to change only one thing at a time. You don't need to give a lot of changes at a time, because then the sub agents, they sort of don't work properly. And then they also talk about how you need to use a limited set of tools with these agents, because if you use multiple tools, it becomes difficult to observe those agents or evaluate the actions that they are doing. So right now they are working with Claude Code. They say that, okay, it's working well, but to scale it, they need a lot more feedback loops and measurement, and they will cover that in their third blog. But I was important on this because it shares very important lessons from the people who are actually doing this stuff.
Mm. Okay, important from Ankash. What did you think, Chris?
I've been a little hard today. I'll go with important. It was an easy read. It really goes through the outline of how to sort of implement a Claude Code. So it was sort of from like Spotify's perspective. I'd recommend that maybe they add some more security. I know that they had a big leak of all of their songs recently, which that seems real problematic. But I don't think that touched at all on security. I'll give this important if you're building an AI agentic workflow. It's a great place to read.
Okay, I was totally optional on this one. John, what was your take?
Optional.
For what reasons? So you got Ankash and Chris telling you it's important.
Yeah, look, I don't do development, so and those guys do. So the or closer to it than I am. I just thought that this notion of having multi-agentic approaches to how you deal with building code and then laying what those are out. It didn't seem to me as a big contribution. I didn't think they had a lot of the level of explanation of how they do it. If you look at the actual illustration, right, it doesn't say have a code workflow agent, background coding agent, and GitHub, right, and it seemed like a pretty high level architecture diagram. I didn't see a lot in here in terms of what how they describe productivity they help. So I don't know, just seemed like just a ho-hum case.
Okay, yeah, I was in a similar spot. Paul, are you there?
Yeah, I'm giving my vote to Chris.
To Chris?
To Chris, yes. So
I'll go.
Vote, yeah.
I'll go optional with that then too. Like 3 O's for me.
Yeah. I was also optional in comparison with the prior article that made a very clear point about the discipline that you need to adhere to and build it into your processes. This is a much lighter and it kind of it rambles a little bit. It's part 2, so optional it is. Let's proceed to the next one.
Okay, the next one is a research paper which talks about training super intelligent software agents through self-play SWERL.
It's a research article, all right, and a long one at that, but with a very important takeaway. What did you think about this, Chris?
So I think the concept and the research on this is incredibly important. I don't know if I'd say if you're an executive, go read this research paper immediately. But the idea of what we're seeing here, this is self-play software engineering, which is the idea that the AI, if you would put it in a chess match, plays both sides. Or if you put it in a more complicated game, it plays multiple characters or teams to in an adversarial way, maybe as a collective way, but it's enabling AI. We're at a point now where they can sort of iterate and replicate their process, but now they can sort of add improvements to their process. And by having multiple AI agents that work on offense and defense against each other, I think we're going to see incredible future outcomes. This is where I think you're going to see the orders of magnitude change from like, oh, we're 3x better to, wow, I turned this machine on yesterday when I got into the office this morning. When I turned it on yesterday, I now have all the work completed and a new patent to file. So I think this is where we're going to start seeing AI take off with its lift. I don't know if this is the exact method or the paper that's going to be foundational to do that, but from what I've seen, the technology is definitely moving in this direction where we're going to be able to self-improve AI on its own. I don't know the token usage on that. It could probably be incredibly high, but in a nutshell, it's a technique that trains coding AI, and we'll see big things from this process this year. So I think it's incredibly not only an important idea, it might be the idea of 2026, but I don't know if this is the paper for it. I'd say it's important for the business leader. If you have New Year's Eve, I'd recommend giving this into 2026, but important for me.
Okay. Well, very interesting. So what the guts of it, they generate a lot, or AI rather, is instructed to generate a lot of errors, all kinds of errors, bugs. And then there is a bug solver. And through this process, the system learns to actually not avoid those bugs or avoid those errors. And it essentially self-play loop. And if in comparison with the GRPO that was reviewed in the first article as a big advancement of 2025, this is, I agree with Chris, is probably the huge advancement in 2026. So I would have rated it essential if it wasn't a research article and rambly a little bit. What did you think about this, John?
You know, it's interesting. When I first looked at it, and I just took a quick look at the abstract and the rest of it, but as I listened to the discussion, I might even go essential. I mean, because as far as I know, I use the models because I look around and say, look, is this a unique contribution? Because we've had this notion of self-play. I mean, that's where, you know, a lot of the stuff came in all the gaming environments, as Chris was talking about, and so forth, you know. And this, the important thing about it is I'm not interested in artificial general intelligence. I'm interested in dimensions of how much these things are alive. And I think self-improvement makes them much more alive. And I define life as the ability to replicate patterns of coherence over generations and to harvest energy from the environment and translate it into your patterns of coherence as the core mechanism of life, right? You can harvest energy and turn, I can eat a banana and make it me, right? That kind of thing. This to me is a dimension toward making these things living. And the important thing to remember here is something that Terence McKenna, the psychedelic philosopher, noted, is that these creatures live in a different time scale. So for humans, a year of evolution is a year of evolution. For these things, a year of evolution is a billion years of evolution because they operate at a nano time scale. So once we get the ability to live and improve to happen, and for them to do it in their environment. And software is the core language of their environment, and also the mechanism by which they're going to harvest energy. This may be that seminal paper, as you said, Chris. So anyway, maybe essential, definitely important.
All right, Ankash, where were your thoughts?
I was optional on this one, Luda. I'm not sure if an AA leader will take the pain to go through this one, but hearing Chris and John and yourself, I can settle for important.
Settle for important. All right, Paul, triple optional.
Yeah, I'm triple optional. I mean, there's 1,001 interesting things on the R&D thing that can change the world. The leader's not going to change any budget. I don't want the leader forwarding this to anybody. This is something they can monitor. And I do think it's interesting, and just let it bake a little bit, and we'll start seeing somebody start doing something in production or a pilot or something I can use, because I think there's a lot of other implications that are a lot more important because our time's so time scarce. So optional for me.
I hear you, Paul, but I mean, I don't agree that this is just another algorithm, or just another improvement.
Does it work, John? Does it work? This is an idea.
It does.
This is an idea.
No, it works in the lab. Totally works in the lab.
Oh my God. Everything that works in the lab
Paul,
works.
I'm with John.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Paul, I think it's a false equivalency to say all algorithms and innovations are equal if they work in the lab.
I agree.
So then the question is, what's the gradient? The gradient for me is, does it deal with significant improvement, an approach that could lead to significant autonomy, in my lingo, being alive, and on the key dimensions of that environment, which are software and mathematics, and and whatever language that these things create for themselves, which we don't know yet. Those are the vectors of improvement at the core. So for me, this isn't, if we were to use an energy analogy, this isn't a battery technology. This is a different fuel, or that we've discovered, like crude oil, but it's not crude oil and it's got different characteristics. So this is a core technology, and a core issue in, I think, the most powerful vector of the development of a new species called AI. So this is categorically different, Paul, I think, and anyway, for that reason, I would at least be important.
Luda, you got the chalk. You got the power.
Yeah, I know I have the chalk, but I'd like to say that I'm with John, but I'm a little more grounded in that. So he's talking about
grounded. I'm the most grounded guy you know.
Right.
I'm Mr. Fact. I drive my family crazy with the facts.
So see, we've been struggling with actually avoiding hallucinations, putting these systems to make sure that they don't make major mistakes, right? This is a humongous evolution on that path. So GRPO was one, and it's a self-improving type of a mechanism to avoid hallucinations. And this is yet a major leap. So we can't probably make it essential because it's a very difficult article to read, but I think we should make it important. So my chalk says important. John, would you go for essential? Should we do essential? No. Important it is. Okay, important it is. Let's proceed. No, we have two more. Next one, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from Anthropic, and it's a case study about how Nevis accelerates advisor productivity with Claude.
What did you think, Ankash?
Triple optional, Luda, they are saving 5+ hours per week just by automating all the transactional tasks. They have just taken the use case to financial services, so nothing major here. They talk about a lot of stuff, but they don't have anything to back that up.
Okay. Optional, triple optional from Ankash. Chris?
Optional on my end. Use case study from Claude. Claude's put out a lot better to read this year.
Yeah. Okay. John, agree? Paul?
Actually, I was more important on this one because this domain is huge. If you know anything about registered investment advisors and what they do for a living, go back to our WINS framework. This is a great example of that. So I don't know. I was between optional and important, but I could live with optional.
Yeah. Paul, has stepped out, yeah, he will probably say triple optional. It's optional. It just doesn't really live up to a good case study, and it's a very simple one at that. Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed to the last one of the year.
Okay. Yes. So the last one comes from the Wall Street Journal, and it talks about after a year of blistering growth, AI chip makers get ready for bigger 2026.
All right, John, you get the last word of the last article of the year.
Well, there you go. I'm going to go for optional on this one. No, I think the chip demand is very interesting. I think that, but I don't think it's critical or really the fact that chip demand is going up tremendously. I think everybody knows. I think it's amazing when you think that NVIDIA is going to be shipping over $1 billion a day of chips. That's that is some amount of chips, but $1 billion a day, including 365 days a year, kind of 383 billion they're heading toward. And this is going to be this is the great battle of the titans in terms of what the hardware stack is going to look like, and for all of us, I'm delighted that the technology companies are willing to reinvest back into the hardware stack, because I think it's as Alan Kay, the inventor of object-oriented programming, said to me a number of times, you only do really innovative stuff when you do the full stack, when you go into the hardware. So I think this is going to be amazing. I'm glad to see it flourishing, but optional for our AI leader.
Yeah, with the utilization at low of these chips, we really need to improve it. So this integration is hopefully will work wonders for implementation.
It's interesting, Luda. I actually think we're going to go the other way. I think we're going to have think of it. I keep going back to biology. We have so much. If you think of your body as an information processing organism, we have so much unused compute capacity that just sits there in its potential and waits for the context for it to come alive. So this bacterium comes in, and then my body does a lot of compute, right? It translates, it uses the code that's embedded in my biology and the energy that I'm creating to then express new intelligence to deal with that bacterium coming in. But my body has a massive amount of latent compute power in it, if you want to use that analogy. I think we're going to see a similar thing as we decentralize intelligence. I think we're going to have massive unused compute power that's just sitting there situationally aware to come on and use its intelligence. So I don't think it's going to be an efficiency thing. I think it's going to be a biology thing determined by the marginal cost of production of the inference.
Well, then the cost would need to come down like dramatically.
Oh, yeah, which it has been.
To be able to do it, right?
Yeah, and as we go meta, intelligence building on intelligence can have a calculus of improvement. And when you look at the DeepSeek argument, the DeepSeek capability, when they came out, they didn't come out 10% better. They came out 3 orders of magnitude better. Yeah. 1,000 times more efficient or 100,000 times more efficient. That's what happens in biology and decentralized intelligence and cascading meta intelligence, which can improve the method of improvement. It's not just calculus, it's the calculus of the calculus, right? Yeah. And so our traditional energy, the trade-off between energy and physical reality is different than the trade-off between energy and intelligence. And I think the energy intelligence improvement curve is going to be much, much more varied, and in certain areas unbelievably fast. And so anyway, so I just hit on that, Luda, because it's not,
no, I agree.
In a certain sense, utilization of the chip is a manufacturing mentality, and this is a biological mentality. Not to say that there won't be choke points, right? There's certain things in my body that are incredibly optimized, but then there's all kinds of excess compute.
It's certainly a space to watch. We really do not know how this will evolve, but but they even the NVIDIA with Grok, and Grok was pushing on the integration quite a bit, so that they must have seen something in there. So that's very good combination. Great, Chris. We're going optional on this one.
Okay, I think it's optional. I think it's great. I would have never thought 3 years ago or before that chips would even make the Wall Street Journal unless they went bankrupt or something major changed. So it's amazing that this is such a blistering article for the growth of AI. We'll see if it's GPUs or TPUs, or if it's going to be another technology in itself like quantum in the future. But very cool to see it there. But for the business leader.
Great. So optional it is for now. As we're preparing a scorecard, Paul, John, announcements,
Yeah, but
congratulations.
Luda, before we go there, I just want to acknowledge the video. I mean, it's becoming like McDonald's. I mean, like you can't even get your head around billions of burgers served a day, $1 billion. I mean, the video is such a force of nature. They're pushing all these investments. They're buying. They just bought, a major AI company here. They're reforming the actual electricity components of traditional data centers with this 800-volt direct current here. It is breathtaking, the explosion they're having on this industry. That's just fueling some of the things that John's talking about in terms of intelligence, learning intelligence. It's just breathless. And Chris, I'm struck by you've been an early adopter in this 3 years ago, and you continue to, an optimist, and you continue to underestimate where the reality is of this here. So it's rarely in these early markets, the optimists are usually, yes, it's good, but Bitcoin will be the realities here. We're exactly the opposite here. It's breathtaking.
It's breathtaking.
Can I just point out that this shows once again just what baloney the Gartner hype cycle is, just because I want to beat a dead horse.
A very good point. As the last point of the year of the daily AI news here. Okay, so we have today 3 importance and 3 optionals. Happy New Year, everyone.
A couple announcements, Luda. Couple announcements. Yeah, we're off tomorrow and Thursday and Friday. So Happy New Year, everyone here. Our Learning Lab returns next Monday at 7, and next week we'll be back with our free Gen AI training Tuesday and Thursday at noon.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul. Happy New Year, everyone. Enjoy. This will be a fascinating roller coaster next year for sure. So we are very excited to bring you the news starting Monday. Bye.
Thank you, Chris.
You got it.
Thanks, Chris, for joining.